Hi, welcome to Tech Time. Today we're going to be talking about Google Sheets. What is Google Sheets and how do I work with it? I'm going to teach you all about that today on Tech Time. Okay, so we're going to be talking about Google Sheets, and it is part of the Google Suite, which you can access from any Gmail or, as some people know it, Google account. Doesn't matter where you're accessing it from, you have complete access to Google Sheets. The way we find it is we first need to be signed into our Google account. We go up here to the squares, which is where our apps live. And in the apps, we get a choice of all these different apps that we can open and use. And to get to Sheets, it does have its own app that we can find, or we can just simply open up Google Drive, which will take us to where we need. Once we're in Google Drive, we go to the New button, which is in the upper left-hand corner. Clicking on New will open up an option to upload files, folders, create a folder, and give us access to the different programs that we have right here. So Google Docs, have a video already about how to use Google Docs. Make sure you check that out. And here's Google Sheets. So what is Google Sheets? Google Sheets is a spreadsheet, plain and simple. So if you have ever used Microsoft Excel, you have used the spreadsheet. What are spreadsheets for? People can use them for many different things. Most commonly, people will use a spreadsheet for organizing data or information. It's a way to organize like statistics, financial information. If you want to keep track of like your spending, you could do so using a worksheet like this. I've seen people use it for keeping track of attendance, grades, um, creating schedules. So there are so many different uses for a spreadsheet. And a lot of people kind of shy away from spreadsheet programs, mostly because it looks scary. And looking at the screen, you can see there's a bunch of little boxes and lines and columns and rows, and what does it all mean? So let's take a quick tour so we can understand what's actually here on the screen. Let's start by looking at our menu items up above. So at the very top of our screen, we have the Untitled Spreadsheet, which is where we would go to give our spreadsheet a title. So you can just click there and title it whatever you want, typically based on whatever the information is going to be below. So if it were a grade book, you might say, English grade book. If it's for something else, whatever it might be, just give it a name that is fitting. I'm going to leave mine as Untitled Spreadsheet for the moment. You also have the options here, which are menu items, and we'll take time to look at each of these in just a little bit, but they all open up different tools that you're going to be using. Now, underneath our menu items, we have some quick tools. So you have your standard undo redo, which is very handy when you're working with spreadsheets. If you make a mistake, you can always undo it. If you undo too many, you can always redo it. There is a print option, but be warned, it's kind of tricky when it comes to using the print option on this program. Remember that we're online. We're not actually using our computer to do this. The computer is doing this through the online website. So when you hit the print here, depending on what browser you're using, It will try to access your printer, and what it might do is first download what you're doing as a document PDF file, and then let you print that, or it might print straight from the browser. Just depends. So be careful with that one. The next important one that we have here is our zoom option, because this will change how big everything looks on the screen to you. Right now it's at 100%, but you can always go bigger or smaller depending on how close you need to see things. You can format anything down here as currency or a percentage. And if you're doing that, you can also determine to what decimal place it shows up on your column or row. Okay, to continue, we have our font control here, which allows us to change the font style. Many different fonts to choose from. Not as many as you might find on a program that's downloaded directly to your computer, but you still get some pretty good options. Font size is right here. You can use any of these preset fonts, or you can type in the size that you want. Your standard bold, italic, strikeout, underline. Text color. Your fill color if you want to create a color for an entire section on here. Now, when working with spreadsheets, one thing to make note of is that the lines that are on here aren't actually there. They're just as a guide for you as you work through the document. If you want the lines to show up, this borders option allows you to decide which ones will show. So you can do all of them and it'll just fill in all the lines and make them dark. Or you can choose how you want those lines to show up. Your alignment is here. Right now it's aligned left inside each little box. You can center it or go to the right. And then you can also decide how the text is going to behave inside each cell. Overflow means it just keeps going outside the cell into the next cell. We'll talk about why that's important later on. Wrap means that it stays inside its own little box. So the box will just get bigger and bigger and bigger to allow space for all of the text that you're typing. And then clip means it just cuts off. You can also choose the direction of your text, and many different directions to choose from, how you want it to appear in each little box. The other two things that are important on here is our filter. If we're trying to show the information in a certain way, like alphabetically by first name or alphabetically by last name or in numerical order, you can filter it that way. And then our functions is pretty much the main reason people use a spreadsheet. A function allows you to do some sort of calculation using the program so that you don't have to do it yourself. Again, we'll look at some examples of how this works in a little bit. First, let's talk about the different menu items that we have up here. Our file menu is where a lot of the important stuff is going to live, such as opening a new something, could be a new spreadsheet or a whole different document altogether. Open an existing document. We can open it from our drive, or we can open something from the computer into Drive. So if there's something on your computer you want to work on, but you don't necessarily have the right kind of program, you can open it up here, work on it, and save it to your drive. Download is the opposite. We're going to take it, whatever's here in our document online, and move it onto the computer. And you have different options for moving it. You can download this as a Microsoft Excel file, which is great if you have Excel and you just didn't have access to it at the time, but you need to work on something, so you put it in Drive, you worked on it, now you want to move it back onto your computer to finish it up in Excel. you can do that. There's also the open document format, PDF format, and then some other ones that aren't really used too often. Right, you can change the name of the document here, but it's a lot easier just to come straight up and change it there. Publish it to a web in case you're trying to put this on a website. And then you have other spreadsheet settings to change the look and appearance and default settings on these things. In the edit option, you have your undo and redo, cut, copy, and paste. These are standard buttons to have in the edit menu. This one also includes a find and replace. That comes in handy if you're taking a document that's supposed to be like monthly and you need to change it. So you could go in and say, okay, let's change all the mentions of the word June to July. Or any instance where the number 6 shows up, change it to number 7. You also can delete certain things like values, rows, columns, and decide if you want it to shift up or left when you do this. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Okay, under the view option, we have some important things. One of those is the grid lines. That's what we see here. Again, they're not actually there, they're just visible for us to use. If we click this here, it will turn them off, and then you'll just see white. Nothing will be there. However, the program will still treat the space as if it has the boxes. So it doesn't clear the boxes, it just makes them non-visible. Formula bar is an important thing to have, so if it's not showing, make sure it is. And then there's your zoom again. You can even go to full screen. Freeze is a nice little option. Sometimes when you're creating a document like this, you want a certain area, like maybe the very top of the document, to stay put. Or maybe you want the far side of the document not to move while you're scrolling through. So you can set where you want that area to be frozen, and then it'll freeze that so that whenever you scroll, everything else on the screen moves, but whatever you froze stays visible. Insert does exactly what it sounds like. It allows you to insert things, insert rows, columns, cells, charts, images, forms, functions, whatever you can think of. In the same vein, format is all the formatting options. So if you want to change the theme, it's a new option that you have. What the number looks like. If it's bold, italic, underline, or a strike through. Your font size, your alignment, your wrapping, text, what direction. Same things that I've already shown you up above in the quick tools. So a lot of good stuff here. Under data, there's where you have your sort. So you can sort this A to Z, Z to A, filter it. So a lot of these tools you probably won't use as a beginner, but as you get more into using the different functions and really taking advantage of what this program can do, then you'll start to venture out into some of these other things that we're not going over right now. This is basic just to get you started. Under tools, you have your spell check and autocomplete if you want it to autocomplete for you. And then notification rules is fun. Since this is a online document, it can also be shared. I'm sure you've noticed by now there's a green share button in the corner here. This allows you to share this document with somebody. And by share, it doesn't mean that, here, take a look. You can collaborate, which means everybody can work on document at the same time. That's a great option, especially if you're doing something for like a group class project or something else where multiple people have to contribute. And the notification allows you to set this up so that if changes are made to the document, you will be notified. and it'll tell you what changes were made. And so if it's something you're working on as a group, you can see what your group team members have done, what they've contributed. If you're using this as a form, so like you have people signing up for things, it'll let you know, when somebody adds in their information and is signed up for whatever event that you're trying to have. So let's move on. Let's talk about this bottom area, all the big scary boxes. So right below our quick tools, we have, it says FX, that's for function, and then a space. This is our formula bar. This is important because anything you type into a cell, which is this box here, will show up in the formula there. Any changes you can make into the formula bar, or you can make them inside the square itself. Totally up to you. But the difference is that when you add an actual formula into the document, the formula will always be visible up here, showing you how certain numbers or certain things were achieved. Down in this space, our workspace, it'll just show you the number that was generated. So let's say we were doing 1 plus 1 equals 2 in this box. So maybe our formula would be the sum of 1 plus 1. In this box, it'll just show up as 2 because the formula is what's generating the number. So when we click on the box up here, it'll say the sum of 1 plus 1. Down here, it'll just show us 2. Speaking of this work area, we have letters going across here, creating columns. And then we have rows, which are all the numbers. So a row goes across like so. Column is up and down. Where they meet is a cell. So each of these are separate cells. And you just use the location. So D8. And that's where I'm located. I'm in cell D8. You can type into any of these cells anytime you want. So I can type my name here. One thing to get in the habit of doing whenever you're working with a spreadsheet program, you want to hit either Enter or Tab to lock in what you're typing. Enter will take, when you're done typing, and move it down to the bottom. So when I hit Enter, it goes down. Tab will go to the right. So if I keep hitting Tab, I'll keep going to the right. If I want to go the other direction, opposite, then I will do Control and Tab. Whoops. Shift and Tab. Or Shift and Enter to go up. So you can use the keyboard to move your little square anywhere you want. And notice that on the screen, it is always going to be highlighted in that blue. That's letting you know where you are. Right now I'm using the keyboard arrows to actually move it around. Okay, I'm going to go back to my starting spot and I'm going to make some changes here. So let's change the font style. Let's go with something fun. Oh, permanent marker. There we go. Let's make it bigger. All right, see how the box sort of adjusted a little bit, but notice that I'm spilling over into the next box. So my name right now is covering box A1 and box B1. Does that mean that my name is in both boxes? Take a moment, think about it. The answer is no. I am only in box A. How do I know? Well, our little friendly cursor that's moving around, the little blue box, when I put this blue box into B1, okay, it looks like my last name is sitting in there, but look at my formula bar right up here. It's blank. There's nothing there. If I click on box A1, there's my entire name. What's happening is the information in box A1 is spilling over into box B1, and so it's kind of doing this overflow thing. If I were to type something in the box B1, it's going to cover up my name. Disappeared. If I click in box A1, it's still there. But since I put new information into this box, this information is overriding the other information. So even though it's still present, it's now being covered. How do I fix this? I can stretch and allow it to open up and give me space. So our problem here is that we need to fix this either by stretching it like so. Now everything fits. Or changing the cell here so that everything wraps instead. So whichever option we choose, it doesn't matter too much as long as we fix it somehow. Because whenever you print, if your information is being covered up by other information, that's exactly how it will print, covered up. It does not like pop out somehow. So make all the changes that you need to make sure that your information is visible. Now, something else to keep in mind, when you want to make changes to things inside these cells, you need to double click. Notice that that brings in the cursor. If I don't double click, I'm not actually in there making the change, which means if I were to type something without double clicking, it replaces what was already there. So my hello that was in the box previously has been deleted. It's gone. It's been replaced by the new information. Hi. So if I want to go in, I double click. When I see the cursor flashing, that means that now I can edit what's inside the box and make changes, fix it, or whatever I need to do. Same idea. If I click on this box and I try to change like the font color, it will affect everything inside the box. If I want to do just a certain piece, I need to double click, highlight. Oops, wrong thing. Nope, I messed it up. So if I highlight just my first name, see, so I can just make changes to certain things inside as long as I double click and working within the box, as opposed to just clicking on it and changing everything all at once. Some other basic information for you. It's really easy to do simple calculations, such as adding. So let's say that I have some numbers here. I'm just going to type some random numbers on to the screen. Okay. I have all these numbers and I want to add them together. So what I do is I click to my first number and I drag to cover the whole set. And it's very important that I make sure they're all covered. You can see the little blue line that's going around all of them. They're also shaded in blue. And even though this one still has the box around it, I have increased my cursor to include all the numbers. Now I'm going to go to this quick function button. I'm going to do the sum, and it's making sure, yes, I want to do the sum of this all the way down. I hit enter, and there you go. It added all these numbers for me automatically. So let's talk about some other changes. So once you have a chance to play with this a little bit, you'll find that it's a really fun feature. Something to take note of though, when you use the quick auto sum feature, your numbers do have to be aligned. Doesn't matter if they're up and down aligned, they can be side by side aligned, but they do need to be aligned. You can use the feature for summing um, in other ways without it being aligned, but instead of using a quick sum, you actually have to put the formula in. And we'll talk more about formulas in another video. So we've talked about how to do some quick formatting, how to put in information, how to do some quick sum. Let's look at how to add and delete columns. This is an important thing that can be very helpful when you're working with this program. Let's say right here where my numbers are that I forgot I needed another column of something else before my numbers. So I'm just going to highlight that column, and then I'm going to look for a way to insert. So, yep, you're probably thinking, click on the insert, and you're right. That's one way. I can also right click and I'll get the same kind of options here. So I want to insert one to the left because that'll give me a space and then move my information to the right. So there's my new blank column. Here's my column with my information, and everything's looking good. I can also delete things if I want to delete a row. Same idea. I click the row. I can right click and choose to delete, or I can come up to the insert option and insert a row above or below. Or if I want to delete, I can just right click and delete or press delete on my keyboard. Now, one last thing I want to show you is called autofill. Autofill allows you to quickly duplicate and anticipate certain things. By duplicate, what I mean is, let's say right here where I have my name, box A1, that I want the same thing in box A2. So I look for this small corner, it's a little square, it's blue, and when I hover over it in the right way, it turns my little arrow into a plus sign. When I click and drag with that plus sign, it does a quick copy. Now, watch this when I do this with numbers. Let's say I want to quickly create my sequence of numbers. Now, by highlighting and dragging down, it's trying to anticipate what I want. And since it copied here, it's trying to just copy that number one here and take it down to as far as I was trying to copy. And that's not what I want. I want an actual sequence of numbers. So I have to show it that I want a sequence of numbers. So I'm going to put in the number 2. Now I have a 1 and a 2. Now I'm going to highlight both of these numbers together. Again, notice the blue is covering both. There's my little square underneath the 2. I'm going to click and drag, and let's pull it down here. Now it's giving me my sequence, and that's because I just had to show it that this is what I'm looking for. This also works very well when you're trying to do things like the days of the week. For instance, I type in Monday, and click on my little autofill, pull it across, and voila. Now I have the days of the week without having to type all of them out one by one. Works with the months and most other kind of natural sequences like this. You can just autofill it across or down, and it'll definitely save you a lot of time. Well, that's pretty much our quick look at spreadsheets using Google Sheets. Please make sure to check out our other videos. Again, we have one on using Google Docs, which is like Microsoft Word. And we're going to have one coming up soon on spreadsheets. Not spreadsheets, presentations, slideshow. So keep watching and take care.